Hare Krishna. Welcome back to the series of 50 years in ISKCON. This is part 31, and we are up to 2015. I've been pretty inactive for quite a while for various reasons, but I do hope to finish this series and bring it up to today. So let me just offer my obeisances. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Bhaska Jade Satarane Vanchakopatarubhyascha Kripa Sinavevita Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so up to 2015. So this year, something that I mentioned in a previous talk when I was describing Panchatattva's installation, Big Panchatattva in Mayapur. And at that time I told about a wonderful experience that I had during that installation ceremony. And at that time, it was as if my consciousness and my spiritual focus, it just radically shifted to Mayapur and Mahaprabhu. And I realized, or at least I had some desire, that I want to worship Gauranga Mahaprabhu as Radha and Krishna combined. So even though I thought that it was quite a long time ago, I was always a little uncertain how to proceed with that desire for some years. I was always thinking about it, different forms, different styles of deities, different poses, or maybe I should get small Panchatattva. So many things were going on in my mind about, what I should do. And I just never felt that I could just, walk into a shop and pick out a deity. I don't know. To me, it just seemed like a very big deal, to choose your own worshipable deity, my Ishtadev. And, although I served so many deities through the years, and of course I told about how we have Radha Madhava in our home, and we have Srila Prabhupada, so it's not like we didn't have any deities in our home. And Rasarani had some other smaller deities as well. But I never had my own personal deity. And so I'm sure I was really overthinking this, but I felt a little scared to just go ahead and get a deity and begin worshiping. So now then around, I think it was 2012, maybe 13, I attended an amazing installation of life-size Mahaprabhu deity along with Simantini Devi at the Jagannath Mandir in Rajpur. And we went for the installation, and that he's wooden, and he's 6 or 7 feet, like life-size, standing. And Simantini Devi is in marble sitting next to him. And the reason that this installation was going on, because this is a Jagannath Mandir, but this island where the Jagannath Mandir is called Simantadweep, or Simuliagram, because of a most wonderful story, which I'm going to tell because I love that story. That once Parvati Devi she saw that Lord Shiva was just dancing in ecstasy, and he was chanting Gauranga, Gauranga, Gauranga. And she was puzzled and attracted, and she was, what is this name? When I hear you chanting, I feel my heart is melting. So tell me, who is Gauranga? And so Lord Shiva told her that, you know, this is a secret truth, that in Kali Yuga, Lord Krishna will take a form in the mood of Radharani in Mayapur. And he will be mad from chanting the holy name, and he will distribute prema to everyone, far and wide. And so Parvati, she wanted in on this nectar, so she came to this place. She came there, what's now the Jagannath Mandir, and she chanted and she meditated on Gauranga. And eventually he appeared in front of her and asked why she had come. But by this time, she was showing that she was in great distress. And she fell at his feet, and she was crying. And she said, but you are so merciful to everyone but me, because you've given me this service, you've engaged me to keep all the living entities who are averse to you in bondage of the material existence. And so doing this service, that deprives me of your unlimited prema. Because, you know, people say, wherever you are, wherever Krishna is, Maya cannot be there. And so I'm always distant from you. So, my Lord, you know, I'm the most unfortunate. How can I see your pastimes? I feel completely hopeless. So, in saying this, expressing her heart, she took the dust from the lotus feet of Lord Gauranga, and she put it on her part, or her simanta. And thus the name Simanta Dweep and Simantani Devi. So Mahaprabhu was listening, and he said, now you listen carefully to me. You are not different from me. You are my energy. And one energy serves me accepting two forms. As my Swarup Shakti, you are known as Radhika, Srimati Radharani. And Radha has expanded in you as my external energy. So without you, my pastimes will not be perfect. And you are working as Yogamaya in my pastimes. In Brajadam, you are there as Purnamasi. And in Navadvipdam, you are there as Prodamaya, along with Kshetrapal Mahadev. And you are here as Simantani Devi. And so saying this, he disappeared. So Parvati, or now known as Simantani Devi, was just completely filled with bliss. So she stayed in Mayapur as Simantani in one form there, and as Prodamaya Devi in another place in Mayapur, for the pleasure of Gauranga Mahaprabhu to assist in his pastimes. So maybe deviating a little by telling this story, but it's a beautiful story, and it helps to understand why we're installing those deities there. And if you have not seen they're in a small temple behind the Jagannath Mandir, very beautiful sandstone carved, just small, and it's just such a magical and mystical place. I mean, the island itself, Simanta Dweep, so many pastimes. And so I highly recommend, if you haven't been there, please go And if you've been there, go again, because it's a wonderful place, to see this form. So when they were bathing this Gauranga deity in preparation to install him, with Simantani sitting next to him, I wasn't expecting it. I heard there's an installation, let's go, But seeing that form of Gauranga, life-size, just totally captivated me. And I thought, now this was for sure. This is who I want to worship. I want a small one like him. So from this day, I started to get serious about, getting my own Gauranga Mahaprabhu deity. And, so I was spending a lot of time thinking, how big should he be, what pose, and how should I worship him? How should I do this? Finally I had some sketches made, and it was all quite exciting, actually. And it took quite a while before everything came together. So this is happening this year. And because there are quite a few steps, I had 2 different carvers and 2 different painters, and getting the outfits, and it was just a fantastic meditation. So this was going on. I'm bringing this up because this was where my mind was absorbed in this, 2015. Probably started in 2014. So that was what was happening for me. Now, another thing that happened in 2015, which was also a big thing for me, and so I'm going to share this whole story of a very dear friend, Manurupa, who she got cancer. She's quite a bit younger than me, probably at least 10 years younger, maybe 15 or so. And she tried many treatments and finally accepted that there was, nothing further to do but to come back to Mayapur for her final days, where she and her family had lived for many years. So I'm going to tell about this because I think it's not so many people know her, and she's just one of those great souls in the background, serving with a lot of purity, who I would like to glorify. That's one of the reasons for this, is to tell stories of people that may be wonderful devotees that maybe many people don't know about, but I would like them to know about. So she was a wife of Prahlad Nrsimha Prabhu. He's an expert and active preacher, astrologer, and family man. And they had 2 sons that were around my daughter's age, and they became sort of like her brothers over the years, because the boys were also Indradyumna Swami's disciples, and they went regularly on the Polish tour. And so Vanamali, the older, and Sri Gaur, the younger, they had grown up in Mayapur and gone to the Gurukula there. So going to the Polish tour, because I was going regularly, my daughter was going regularly, we became quite close there. They had a tent, the astrology tent, and where Prahlad Nrsimha would, he was very skillful, I mean he still is, at using that tool, astrology, to give Krishna consciousness to people, So we, and Manurupa was, the dedicated help behind him, who expertly did all the backup, all the organization, all the finances, everything. She did everything, and he just sat and talked to people. So she was a very serious devotee who had done Sankirtan for years before she married Prahlad Nrsimha, although she's quite a quiet and humble person and very sweet by nature, but also very intelligent and capable. and really strong in executing service and sadhana. And she was a rare woman in that she was totally dedicated to serving her husband. And you might say even a kind of Vedic ideal. And to be honest, initially, when I first knew her, I thought maybe her, very humble service attitude to her husband was maybe a little artificial or a little contrived. Because I saw how, she was just so fixed in that service, always putting him first, and was a perfect assistant in every way, and making sure he had his prasadam, and she didn't eat until he was fed, and all of that. But, eventually I understood that this was truly her way of serving. Whatever she was doing, she did it with a full heart and lovingly. But as she once told me, don't think it's easy to be like that. It's not like, oh, that's just my nature. Not at all. It was cultivated. It's something to work on. Because once I saw a situation that I thought maybe she was just being a little bit too tolerant. You know how people can sometimes take advantage of very surrendered souls? So I looked at her like, really? You're just going to take that? And, she understood exactly what I meant. And she said, don't think it's easy. I am German, I have to practice to control my mind. And, and I saw that she was just very serious about how to do her service in a humble spirit. And it wasn't artificial in her case. It was genuine and impressive. So she was also a very loving mother, and we had a lot of good times on tour and in Mayapur. So it was with great sadness when I heard that she had late-stage cancer. And she and her family were very private about their personal life, so I didn't even know until it had progressed to a very serious degree. And she'd already undergone treatments, and finally Prahlad Nrsimha brought her back to Mayapur to stay in a room in the Kanch building for her final days. Now, at this time I saw the tables turn. Now her husband, Prahlad Nrsimha, he served her and reciprocated her years of dedicated service to him. And he did that in the most focused and personal and sensitive, loving and devotional way, constantly for many weeks, So there was always beautiful kirtans constantly going on. All the young people knew them, and, of course, Vana and Sri Gaur grew up here, so, all the friends and the Gurukul kids and all of them coming over, constant kirtan and reading, and it was an extremely transcendental environment, very beautiful. Now all of this was going on. It just so happened, by Krishna's arrangement, that it was Gaur Purnima time. So there were many, many senior devotees in GBC, because they were in the Kanch building, so it was very easy. So many were coming to visit her. And everyone was marveling at her grace and composure and dignity, humility. And despite all this, clearly difficult bodily situation. And one GBC that stopped to see her afterwards, he said, I thought I was coming to give her some association. And he said, but I realized I came to get her association. And he said, I feel blessed and purified, having had a little of her company. I pray that I could have such an auspicious departure. And so around this time, Vanamali and Rasarani, my daughter, they were supposed to go on tour with Indradyumna Maharaj in South India. And this planned tour, this had been planned for many months, and they were, both of them, important members of that tour. So it was, everyone was uncertain, what should they do? Of course they didn't want to leave when she was in this condition. And Manarupa had become kind of like a second mother for my daughter, and they had a very affectionate relationship. So naturally, both of them, Vana and Rasarani, wanted to stay with Manarupa until she departed. But it was Manarupa. She was very insistent that their service came first, that they should leave, they should go on tour, and they should serve their spiritual master. And so you can imagine how heart-wrenching this goodbye would be. They were a tight-knit, loving family. And, frankly, I just couldn't even imagine doing that. Saying goodbye to your child, knowing that you won't see them again. And, but it was amazing to see how Manarupa did this with such composure and such fixed Krishna consciousness. She gave some wonderful instructions, life instructions to Vana before he left. The other brother, Sri Gaur, was going to remain and help with her physical care. And she placed her hands on his head and gave her blessings. She gave some gift to Rasarani, and she said goodbye. And off they went. And I cannot imagine what that felt like for all of them, or for her. And it wasn't clear how much time she had left. It's very hard. We knew she was in the late stages, but it is hard to say. But it looked like it was getting pretty close, So I came to read to her. And I asked her, well, what would you like to hear? And she asked me, well, what did you bring to read? And I said, well, I brought Navadvip Bhavataranga by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which is really, I don't know if you could say the favorite, but a favorite of mine. It's just an incredible, incredible book, So by this time she was very weak and just lying in bed, and mostly her eyes were closed. And but she said, yes, very enthusiastic, please read that. And it was such a beautiful environment. While I was reading, I felt so moved by the text, and just being there was just much more enlightening and intense than a usual read. And I'd read for quite a while, and I thought it looked like she was asleep, so I thought I should stop. I stopped, and without opening her eyes, she said, please don't stop. So I just read the whole book, and she was intensely listening, constantly, till the very end. And that is not easy. Oh, Krishna. And so a couple of weeks, she was going on still for days, and a couple of weeks after Vanamali and Rasarani had left, Rasarani called me and said that she felt she should come back to Mayapur, and that there was going to be a 3-day break in their festival schedule, and she wanted to come back for the in that time, during that time. I was surprised, and I was like, well, it's not a very practical thing, but I felt like she knew what she needed to do, so we quickly got her a ticket to get back as quickly as possible. And unknown to her, Vana had also suddenly had this inspiration that he wants to go back to Mayapur during this break also. So they both returned with a return ticket for 3 days later. And I was thinking, oh, you know, it just means another goodbye. And, you know, but it was happening. So those were very intense days. I hardly saw Rasrani. She and Vana stayed almost constantly with Manarupa. Rasrani was massaging her very swollen legs, and kirtan is going on. And during this time, although, you know, for sure Manarupa had a lot of pain. I mean, the doctor said she would have a lot of pain, but she was very composed. And she didn't want anyone to touch her except a couple of younger people. So, you know, Prahlad Nrsinga asked her, Manu, you know, how are you tolerating this pain? Do you need something? Do you need to take something for the pain? And she said, no, I know how to stop the pain. And he was quite surprised, you know, really? Well, how? And she said, I go to the altar and I sit on a flower at the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda, and then I feel all right. And Prahlad Nrsinga was like, he's kind of chuckling, like, what? And she said very strongly and seriously, she said, I can do it. And he realized, wow, she is amazing. And so, also Prahlad Nrsinga said sometimes when no one was around in her room, there were two rooms. Her bed was in a side room there were glass doors, and it was adjoined to a big room where there were beautiful deities and the kirtans were always going on. But he said sometimes he would see her and it looked like she was communicating with someone. And, you know, he would ask her, you know, what's going on, and she would just say, I'm not telling you. You're just going to go and tell everyone. So we don't know, but we know something interesting was going on there. So I went to see her in the afternoon just before the Adivas for the Kirtan Mela, which, you know, was about to begin. And Jayapataka Maharaj also came to visit her at that time. And it really seemed that she could go at any moment, but I was thinking, knowing her, she is definitely not going to leave until the Adivas, you know, till after this is over, because Sri Gaur was taking just a little break from serving her in order to play the sitar in the kirtan for the Adivas, which I think was the first time he'd done that. And just knowing her, she's just too conscientious, too polite. She would not want to disrupt anything or cause any distraction. You know, she would not leave until after that. I was feeling quite certain. And when the Adivas was about to begin, Prahlad Nrsinga said that everyone should just go down to the temple to participate, and they would try and watch it on the computer. So I said goodbye, and she just looked so very beautiful. And late in the night, when only her immediate family was there doing very soft kirtan, she had her hand in, Jayapataka recommended that she have her hand in a little pot of Ganga water. I guess it's like being in the Ganga. It's quite beautiful. She had her hand. And she very softly asked, are the deities open? And they said, well, not now, but soon will be Mangalarti. So she just, And so she waited, and soon the conch shell blew, and then pretty much right after that, she just gently departed. So the preparations for her final journey to the Ganga were arranged really swiftly, which was very unusual, because there are a lot of practical things that have to be done, and it often takes time. Sometimes it can take a really long time, and but it happened very quickly. And then I remember the procession was starting, and I met them as they were walking towards the Ganga. And I saw them as from a distance coming in my direction. And it was just incredibly beautiful. It was like something out of Mahabharata or something. It was just this beautiful. They were walking slowly, which is unusual. Usually they do it fast, but somehow they were walking like so gracefully in this beautiful kirtan with just incense billowing all around her, and her frame was fully draped with a maha veil of, I don't know, Radharani or one of the gopis, her face covered. And then getting down to the ghat, someone had arranged like an archway, a beautiful archway of flowers around the pyre, and it just beautified the area, and it was all just so Manarupa, so tasteful and so perfect. And, you know, it was unbearable to watch Vanamali light the fire and circumambulate his mother. Oh my. And the look on Prahlad Nrsinga's face and the tears of the devotees, you know, it was just overwhelmingly intense and beautiful and heart-wrenching and so glorious. And, you know, I rushed back home before everything was over, as I was, you know, there, Vanamali and Rasarani are supposed to, the taxi is there waiting, they're supposed to fly back. 3 days have gone by, and they're supposed to fly back, catch a flight. And I knew they would have to stay till the very end of the ceremony, and yet there was very little time to make it possible. And so I, you know, rushed home and packed a bag and packed prasadam, and I don't think either of them had eaten for quite a while. And so finally, Rasarani just ran in dripping wet, changed her clothes, grabbed the bag, took the prasadam, and Vana was doing the same thing in his place, and they met and jumped into the taxi, and off they went. And they made their flight. And I cannot even imagine what that taxi ride was like, what they spoke of, or how they assimilated this whole experience, or how they even went on stage to perform soon afterwards. But they did. Anyway, I felt incredibly blessed to witness this most auspicious and glorious departure. And Manarupa was such a lovely and gentle person, but I also saw that she had become very powerful, very strong through her firm dedication to humble service to her husband specifically, and in all her services that she did. It didn't weaken her. On the contrary, it made her so strong and so composed and so in control of her mind and senses that she was able to face death with great courage, strength, and complete consciousness. I really, sincerely offer my most heartfelt obeisances to that beautiful soul. It is very rare. That is not an easy thing. And the reason I'm telling this story is not for entertainment or sentimental value, but because there are many important lessons we can take from it. You know, first, to bring awareness to the fact that there are many great devotees around us, and often in the shadows, and often not recognized. And it's important, you know, that we look around and that we see devotees by their qualities and their service, and not just their titles or their standing, their position. I mean, it would be nice to recognize such souls before their departure, not just after. Of course, sometimes Krishna hides someone's glories, but you know, I know that Manarupa, she was always very respectful to me as a so-called senior devotee. But I know now that, you know, she is far senior to me in devotional service. Because it's not just the senior by years or age that are what shows an advanced devotee. You know, of course, there's an etiquette that we observe, but we should also open our eyes to the wonderful devotees that are around us. Sometimes they might even just be children, you know. We need to look, be observant. And, you know, because to appreciate and to glorify such individuals, this is one of the most important acts we can do. It's an important part of our spiritual growth. You know, rather than spending time whining or complaining about those who we don't like or leaders that have let us down or whatever. But it would be better time spent to look around and appreciate the many wonderful devotees that are around us. And, you know, this story, it shows the power of the process we're following. It shows, it works, if we stick with it. And Srila Prabhupada often said success is guaranteed. And so, you know, we can take inspiration from this. You know, extraordinary perfection of life, which is unbelievably rare, is possible and is achievable. And it does happen. And you don't have to do big things or have a big name in order for it to happen. We just have to be sincere. And, you know, this story, it also shows us how lovingly Krishna is acting in the lives of his sincere devotees. You know, the way things transpired during this time, how everything was arranged and worked out so perfectly. It was just so clearly orchestrated by the Lord. It was almost like Krishna was announcing, I love Manarupa. It was kind of obvious. So a lot of things to learn from that. I mean, you know, I kind of dragged it out telling that whole story, but I think it's very meaningful in many ways. Now, another thing that happened in 2015 that impacted on the service that I had been involved in my last few talks, I explained, you know, all the plans that we were working on for Mayapur development, and how Kadamba Maharaj had put together a strategic plan that we hoped to begin to unfold. And, you know, so there had been, you know, a feeling of hope and positive development. So our strategic planning team was devastated when Kadamba Maharaj told us that he had an illness that needed immediate attention. I mean, later we found out it probably was his first bout of cancer. And that he would need to go immediately for treatment. And there was just no avoiding it. And so now he would have to pull out of all involvement with Mayapur. And that was really sad. I mean, of course, it was sad that he was unwell, But because he was the voice for that change, you know, he was pushing that forward. You know, you need the right people to push things forward, and he was someone that people listened to. So it was very sad to lose that support and his direction. So that was quite disappointing. I'm pretty sure that that was sometime in 2015. And then we moved into 2016, which turned out to be a year that would be, or at least there would be some events in the beginning of the year that would be pretty dramatic and traumatic. Some challenges and changes to what we'd been working on. And I don't intend to get into full descriptions of what took place, all the politics and different things that happened. One reason is that I can't remember it all very clearly. And another is that there wasn't just one thing that happened. There was a number of things that transpired at the same time. And so there were multi-level issues and problems. It wasn't just like one thing happened, but a number of things that resulted in a chaotic and problematic time and a change for me as far as service goes. So, and also there are different, widely varying views about these things that happened. Different devotees will tell different stories about what happened and why things happened. And I'm not in a position to comprehend or explain it all, but it was a big thing. So I have to discuss it to some degree, and also because it affected my own life. So just to give a little background, at that time there was a body called the GBCOM, or the GBC Committee, that was supposed to keep abreast of things going on in Mayapur. I mean, you know, imagine the city developing, you know, huge plans. So there was supposed to be some oversight from the GBC body itself was needed. The Srila Prabhupada had always referred to Mayapur as an international project. So it was one of the few projects that the GBC has had some say and involvement with since its inception. There were yearly reports to the GBC body on what was going on then and there. But many of those, I mean, that was a body for management, but, you know, most of them were, you know, they weren't on the ground involved, but they would receive reports, and particularly at Gaur Purnima time. But there was one of the members of the GBC committee, who was actually active on the ground, and he had been visiting for some time, and he was seeing a need for some activity on the ground, and seeing, wanting to get extensive auditing done, and he formed a department which I can't remember what it means. ESCO, I think, was the acronym. Ethics. You know, it was an ethics committee. And they had an office, and they had hired a devotee private investigator to research all things that were going on, how things were functioning in Mayapur, and so that was ongoing. Now, personally, it seemed essential to me that these things should be done. There should be transparency, because for years there had been rumors had circulated regarding inappropriate land deals, or, you know, some varieties of corruption going on. But what were the facts about that? You know, there's always rumors, you don't know, you know, so good to find out. I mean, we do know for sure that there was some impropriety, but how much, or what the details or the extent of it, it was a question and remains a question. So surely this was something that was important. Transparency, ongoing in ISKCON. I mean, it's just, it has to be there. Especially in any spiritual society, to maintain trust and to keep things above board. Because naturally, when any institution grows, there is more, acquiring of valuable properties and more money flowing, and there's always danger whenever there's growth. If you study the Christian history of, the building of cathedrals, some brutal stories. So, it's not surprising that things happen, but they have to be dealt with. So I thought it was good that some people didn't think it was good. I thought it was good that this committee was formed, or this department, whatever it was. However, I also personally thought that they were going about it in the wrong way, because it was really all out in the open, and they were going to be calling out people in the open. And you have to be sensitive to where you are and who you're dealing with. In India, it just isn't done like this. Or at least it's not effectively done like this, because one of the most important things is one's honor. One's honor is to be protected at any cost. So, any investigating, accusing of wrongdoing in India, these are my opinions, it's best done in the quietest way possible. Not that it shouldn't be done, but I know that the devotee who was in charge of this department, he was warned in this regard, and he didn't see it as that important. So although personally I do believe that the intentions of this committee were sincere, the methodology turned out to be ineffective, unproductive, even destructive, rather than instructive. So these are my own views. But to make a long, unpleasant story short, to try to say it as briefly as possible, facts. Apparently there's a lot of anger and unhappiness about what this ethics team was doing. Some felt that they were being framed for wrongdoing. So there had been some complaints in this regard to the Indian Bureau. The Indian Bureau is kind of like the GBC for India. And so some counter investigations were supposed to be going on. But apparently local devotees that were eager to make their voices heard, they gathered a large group of Bengali devotees. I'm told between 100 and 200. That's like remarkable amount. Well, more aptly might say an angry mob, an angry mob, and they charged the Lotus building or the Conch building or both, I'm not sure, to make their protest heard. And this is when GBC meetings were in progress, so I wasn't there, so I can't say exactly what transpired, but I can say that it was nasty and it was violent, and that one GBC man was actually attacked. He was not seriously harmed, but it certainly shook him up. And it's also not clear to me how it was stopped, but suffice to say, it was ugly, it was confusing, it was dangerous, and it was frightening. And apparently the GBC leader of the ethics committee had to leave Mayapur in the dead of night that evening, fearing for his life. So you can imagine what followed was many meetings and arguments and discussions and heated debates ensued. And again, you know, long story short, the Bureau took things into their own hands to try to calm things and forge ahead. I mean, it appeared that the GBC body was kind of stymied and, well, they looked a little bit helpless in how to deal with the situation. And so, the Bureau came up with some official decisions. This was in March of 2016. It's kind of long, so, but I have it here, so I'll try to summarize a little. In summary, they were saying that they received complaints regarding the current management team in Mayapur, and that the Bureau was appointed, they had appointed a team to visit and to investigate. So, but now, after these actions, it's seen that, you know, immediate action to calm the situation. They outlined the following steps. So this is what they decided, the Bureau. That, and I will read that. I have this on my computer. The current top-level management team at ISKCON Mayapur branch is hereby dissolved. Now the top-level management of Mayapur branch shall consist of the following committee, to be known as the Mayapur Executive Board or the MEB. So in other words, just, you know, wiped out everything and put in a new body. And that body consisted of some of the old ones and some new Bureau members and some others. So the membership of the MEB will be reviewed by the Bureau at its next meeting, and all previously existing top-level management structures and positions, such as Mayapur GBCom, co-directors, and deputy directors, are discontinued. So basically everything, the way everything was run, was just stopped. And the MEB shall establish appropriate new top-level structures and positions and delegate authority to them as appropriate. And the MEB, in consultation with the devotees in ISKCON Mayapur, shall assemble a list of complaints that require investigation and forward that list to the Bureau together with a suggested plan for how they shall be investigated and the matters resolved. Yeah, so those things were decided. And then the Bureau pledged that they would take prompt action in this regard, and that until this was done, all the former members, there were some specific names named, shall not be involved in any managerial capacity at ISKCON Mayapur. Just so you know, all of these people that are being replaced and changed, it's not any of those people that were rebelling. It's not them. It's our management structure. I never heard that anything was done to those people who, anyway. So the Bureau then, they requested that Gopal Krishna Maharaj appoint someone that could do an in-depth audit of the finances of Mayapur, and that that person shouldn't have any position in Mayapur or TOVP or anything, and then he could give a report as soon as possible. And then there were some sannyasis who offered to visit and preach in Mayapur, you know, regularly to try to help establish, improve training programs and Vaishnav Sangha for the community, so that was appreciated by the Bureau. And the Bureau said that they would, it's just too long to read, but that someone would talk with these ESCO leaders and they would try to figure out how what they wanted to do could be continued, but it wouldn't be done by them. And, you know, the Bureau requested the MEB to, you know, that they had like 60 days or something to really, within 60 days, they should have an Office of Internal Communications for the Mayapur community, so that, you know, management decisions are understood by the community, so that the community members are encouraged to express their views, ideas, and concerns, and that also a sense of community and shared vision and values develops among Mayapur's diverse communities. So at this point, I will not comment on whether these things were done or not, or how it worked out, as it would just be too much to go into, and I don't have enough facts and figures. But as far as I know, ISCO or ESCO, the Ethics Committee, you know, didn't continue to exist as far as I know. And I don't think there was so much that was done to develop a shared vision amongst the community or for the community to express their views, apart from, you know, a couple of big meetings. So that's what went on, you know. So basically the entire structure of management was eliminated or changed, and it was quite radical. And I can't say how this has changed things, whether that was good things, bad things, but what it meant for me and the teams that I'd been working with was that our committees, they just no longer existed. And whatever work that we'd done with GBCOM, it was over. And not only was it over, but whatever we'd done up to that point, it hadn't been carried over to anyone else. So, you know, how all of this would pan out, you know, only time would tell. But, you know, it didn't take long to see that, you know, the work that we had done was just discarded like, you know, a puff of dust in the wind, no longer to be revisited. You know, with some exceptions, much of the master plan work, you know, was ongoing. That was okay. But, you know, there didn't seem to be anyone who was particularly interested about what had even transpired previously. Or maybe just with new people coming in, they were not even aware what had been going on previously, nor did they inquire about it, you know. So needless to say, all of this was upsetting, it was disturbing, and it was confusing for many, and it had an adverse effect for a number, mostly foreign devotees. Because as I said earlier, there were other issues that were going on at the same time. You know, sort of like this sort of bomb was dropped and, you know, the shrapnel went all over. But, you know, it was so odd that so many things to happen all simultaneously. It's like somehow it's Krishna's arrangement, but you don't really know why. Can't really understand it. There were some some kind of altercations that went on amongst some of the kids in the schools, between each other, not like abuse or anything. It was just some, I can't really say, you know, but it wound up causing a lot of problems in the school and between various devotees, because some complaints were even made to the police against different devotees, which resulted in FIRs being given to a number of foreign devotees. FIR means it's a first information report. It's a written document which is prepared by the police when they receive some complaint or information that there's been some significant offense was done by someone. So that was going on. You know, these are like not nice stuff. And it was worrisome experiences, and it caused some devotees to leave Mayapur or just to really back away from any involvement. So this period of difficulty, it's described by some as a Bengali versus foreigner divide. And surely there were some elements of that, but personally, I believe it was more just about money and power and corruption than a racial divide. But of course, there's so much that could be said about all of this. What I'm saying is perhaps a simplistic explanation, but suffice to say that this was a tough time for many. It changed a lot in Mayapur. But because this type of institutional problem it's not unique to one temple or one person, and because this type of experience can hamper one's spiritual life, I want to discuss this more, try to discuss it further in reflections upon this period, because it took time. It took time to see what's happening, what's going on, where, you know, it's over a period of time. So, you know, just to see what can we learn from such experiences, how do we navigate them, how do we keep inspired when we're hit with significant disappointment or things that we think are not right or unfair, or, you know, things are just not going as we think they should. So these are big topics, and they're important, you know, and most people will come across something like this throughout their life. So maybe I'll try to, you know, meditate on it a bit and discuss more about that in reflections upon this period of time. But anyway, to go forward, around this time I was also starting to have more than usual difficulty with my own health, increasing arthritis and fibromyalgia throughout my body, and they were making life harder. And I was really starting to feel my age, or even more than my age. And so this is a time when, you know, the reality of the suffering of disease and old age becomes a stark reality, not just, you know, a quote that we rattle off, birth, old age, disease, and death, you know. Anyway, I never had a very smooth ride in this body, but this year, you know, I felt I really needed to take a month out and go for Ayurvedic treatment in a clinic in Udupi. So when was this? This was after Kartik Parikrama time. So yeah, I'd gone back to Mayapur. And then a few days before I was booked to leave for the clinic, my beautiful Gauranga Didi was finally completed. So the first time, I carried him with me in my backpack. You know the saying, I've got your back. Well, this was the ultimate feeling of safety, that Gauranga is literally on my back. And so I first traveled to Vrindavan because I had to check on, this was in December, I had to check on some deity work before going south. And So the day after I arrived there, it was early morning, and I was thinking, supposedly chanting japa, but thinking about how and when I would begin Gurunga's puja, what should I do, how should I do it, and I definitely wanted, I wanted some kind of an installation for him, even just some small thing. And so I was really meditating on this, and it occurred to me, I realized, Andrew Maharaj is here now. Maybe he could just, put him on his altar for a minute and just ask, please accept the service of my god sister. And so I thought, yeah, I should do that. That's what I should do. And I told myself I should go see him later in the day and talk to him. But then I suddenly remembered that today is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's disappearance day. And then I thought, this is the day. I have to do this. This is such a great day. This is perfect. So although I always avoided, bothering Maharaj, especially early morning japa time, but I sent him a text, and I was very apologetic, but I said, please, I want to do this today. Could you just just install Gurunga? It could take 2 minutes, but I need someone senior to say that I can begin this puja, So he was like, yeah, sure, bring him over in the afternoon. I'm on my way to go to Radhakund right now. So it was kind of exciting. And so in the afternoon, I went over to Maharaj's place, and he was sleeping, and I thought, oh gosh, I wonder if he even remembers. And I just, waited. And then eventually he came out of his room, and he just said Haribol, and he rushed into his second room. And so I'm waiting. I said, gosh, I wonder if I'm sure he must remember. And so I kind of peeked around to see what he was doing in the other room, and he was like, no, you can't come in, don't look. I'm getting the gifts for Gurunga. I saw that he had all his puja paraphernalia kind of opened up and on the floor, and he was like, obviously he was looking through his stuff, to see what presents he could give to Mahaprabhu. And so I thought, oh, that is so nice. So then he came out, and he was like, when he gets into doing something, he's like the general that he gives the instruction. He said, so you take Gurunga, you go upstairs to his temple room is on the roof, and he has a little temple, beautiful little amazing temple room. It's gone now, but take him up there, and very shortly, devotees are arriving, and they're going to bring all the paraphernalia. We're going to have the abhishek, and we'll have an arti, and we'll have the feast, and I'm going to give a talk. And I was like, what? And so he was just fully into it and fully present, and I just couldn't believe. I just couldn't believe how beautiful it was that he just understood this is important to me, and he wanted to do it, in the way that he does things, like Paka, first class, fantastic and ecstatic. And so, we went up there, and he had me, told me what to do, and you sit here and I'll do this, and and he did the whole thing, did a whole, very serious, he touched the heart of Gurunga, and for a long time he was praying something, his eyes were closed. And later I asked him, well, what were you saying? What were you praying? He said, none of your business. And, so bathing with all the ingredients and, everything, just, and it's this little temple room, so just this beautiful little group of devotees. And Maharaj gave a whole talk. It was just absolutely fantastic. And afterwards we had a feast, and I would have to say that was one of the best days of my life. It was just amazing. So from that day I began Gurunga's puja, and I'd spent a fair bit of time trying to figure out exactly what I want to do. I knew that due to, at this time I was really traveling a lot and I was in poor health, that I couldn't maintain anything elaborate. So I wanted the focus to be not on, elaborate dressing or, all kinds of physical things. I just wanted it to be more on meditation and on Manasa Puja. A majority of it would be Manasa, and offering a lot of prayers. And, I'd been thinking along this line, and then I came across a quote from Srila Prabhupada that, made me feel, yes, it's okay, this is what you can do. So I have that quote where Srila Prabhupada says, let me see. Prabhupada said, the Hare Krishna mantra chanting means keeping Krishna always within your heart. It is not expensive at all. You haven't got to make a very exalted throne for Krishna. You can imagine that in my heart, I have placed now a very diamond throne, and Krishna is sitting. That is accepted. Actually, it becomes. Even within the mind, you think that I have kept one diamond throne, very costly throne, because Krishna is coming. He will sit down here. That is not false. That is fact. So you create such situation within your heart. Now Krishna has seated. Let me wash his feet with the Ganges water, Yamuna water. Now I change his dress to a first-class costly garments. Then I decorate with ornaments. Then I give him for eating. You can simply think of this. This is meditation. Svantastena Gadabrita. It is so nice thing. Anywhere you can sit down and think that Krishna is sitting in your heart and you are receiving in so nice way. They are not false. They are also fact. It is so easy. So I thought, this is so beautiful how Prabhupada describes this. So, I spent a lot of time developing the meditation of, the whole environment of where I go for the puja, who's there, the place, the look, the offerings to be made. It's just been a wonderful experience to develop that, and it's evolved, and it's also changed a bit over time, adding different prayers and different ways of doing things. I mean, part of it I do the bathing, I bathe, the water goes in front of him, and, arti and these things. But, having this meditation has hugely changed my life. Having Gauranga with me always wherever I go, it was just life-changing, that you think, well, how was I living before? What was I doing? It must have been so empty. And so I bring up all of this just to illustrate it's not anything unique. I mean, so many devotees are all doing their puja and have their deities. But, I just, in my life, how it affected me, and I just want to illustrate how life can improve significantly through personal deity seva, having your own deity and serving. I mean, of course, through any service that we deeply meditate on and take shelter in, but it's just a very, very special thing to have the deity that you are focused, it gives the mind focus and the heart, a place to love. And I think I might even do a separate talk to explain my whole puja process, because it's a very beautiful thing, and I just feel like I'd like to share it. Your puja, it is very personal and it's private. It's intimate time with your Lord. And it's a place that you go daily where you become familiar with and relish being in the company of the Lord and the devotees. And I saw a quote somewhere. I don't know, but it really stuck in my head. I can't find it now, but it was something to the effect that for a devotee, death means entering into the meditation that you did daily in your puja throughout your life. So I thought that was very enlivening, going to a familiar place. Anyway, I will end here, and I haven't finished this. We've just gone up, we've got a couple more years to cover in this segment, so I will continue in part 32. Hare Krishna.